Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.
I'm lucky enough to be sitting here with the beautiful Acharya Mangalananda Ji, who normally lives in Omkareshwar, and now will be spending quite a bit of time in the U.S. And I'm lucky enough to be able to do this interview. We've been wanting to do it for quite some time, and now we're here. We're going to hear a little bit about his life story, how he first came to India, his experiences with Anandamayi Ma, and living at his ashram and supporting this beautiful orphanage school, and what he's up to now. So, take it away. Acharya Ji, please tell us about how you first came to India in the first place.
Okay. I was just a teenager living in Dallas, Texas, and really a part of the hip drug culture and all this, 71 or so. I stumbled into a lecture on a college campus, SMU campus, given by a direct disciple of Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh. His name is Swami Satchidananda. He later founded the Integral Yoga Institute. And I was so amazed at his charisma and his presence and his teaching of yoga. I decided I have to become a yogi. So it took me a while, but I cleaned up my life and started going to classes, and took initiation from him eventually and trained as a yoga teacher under him, and lived in his ashram in Austin, Texas. I had a lot of contact with him. I went on several retreats with him, and he was really an amazing influence to the whole generation of that kind of lost drug generation that we were in the 60s and 70s. He came right at the time where people were just had enough of that, and he really helped people make a transition into a spiritual life in a very orderly and scientific way through diet, asanas, chanting. It was really a very good influence. So one time I was just going to a yoga class at his studio, one of his centers in Dallas, and there happened to be an American Swami there named Swami Nirmalananda, who was a direct disciple of Anandamayi Ma, and he had just come from Ma. And this is before video cameras. He had a small roll of 8mm film he had just shot on his visit to Ma in India.
And he was a Westerner, or he was an
Indian?
Indian? Okay.
Yeah, he's an American. So he was showing this. I had no idea who Anandamayi Ma was. No plans on going to India. And as I was watching the film, there was one amazing shot where Ma walked out of this building, walked down this sideway, started to get into a car, and before she got in the car, she leaned over the door and looked right into the camera, and her face filled the entire screen. And she looked, I felt like she looked right into my eyes, because there were other people in the room, but she looked right into my eyes and looked and looked and looked. I mean, for a long time, really looked. Then she kind of went, boom, and gave this little Shakti blast out of her eyes into me. And I was just really moved. I thought, wow, what is this? So I kept in touch with this Swami, and a few months later, he showed the same unedited reel of film. I asked him later, is this the same film you showed earlier? He said, exactly, yeah. And so I was waiting, it was all the same, I was waiting for that one shot. Oh, here comes that good shot. So Ma walks out of the building, gets in the car, and drives off. She did not look at the camera.
No, stop.
This was a typical
Stop.
Ma would play with time and space, typical Ma miracle. So I guess other people didn't see it. I later had another experience when I was with Ma, where she did that, where she suddenly just spoke to me and no one else saw it. So I was very moved, so I kept in touch with the Swami, and I lived in his ashram, moved into his ashram with the permission of Swami Satchidananda. I said I was very drawn to Ma and this new way of life, and he gave me permission. He said, he was very humble. He said, I would just step on the ladder, take your foot off this rung, and go to the next step, go to Ma. It was so sweet and so humble.
Jai Ma.
So I moved into this ashram with this American Swami and lived and studied Ma's life and teachings and lived a very strict life before I went to India. I went with him and about 4 of the brahmacharis in 1973.
When you said you lived a very strict life, what do you mean by that?
It was a very strict sannyas brahmachari ashram. We meditated from 4 to 7, morning and afternoon. In other words, 6 hours a day. We read the Gita. We did work in the garden. It was a pretty intense life. We did arati every night in Kirtan. And I just come from just being, a wandering hippie teenager. But it was intense. But it was a good training. So I arrived in India, and it's hard to find Ma because she traveled. Anandamayi Ma traveled for 50 years, from 1932 to 1982, incessantly, only staying a few days in each place, just drawn by people's needs and necessities, by the longing of the hearts of the devotees. She moved from place to place. So we found she was in Vrindavan, and so we went to see her. Want me to tell you about the first contact?
Please.
Yeah. So when we arrived in the ashram, they said Ma has been all day sitting in samadhi in her room in the back, but we'll tell her that you came. So we went and we sat in this kind of outer room, and after a while Ma came in and sat in front of us. And it was a very remarkable experience because two things were happening simultaneously. She didn't speak at all. She just looked at us. And I was wondering, what would it be like to see Anandamayi Ma? But here it was, I realized no experience on earth can produce what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing right now, because it was totally a new experience. First of all, to see someone so simple, you know, no matter how so-called humble we are, we still have an ego. But to see someone that did not have an ego, and it manifested just as coming out, sitting in utter simplicity. She was just wearing white with black hair, and just sat with no motivation in this kind of, I can't describe it, but just total simplicity. But at the same time, with this natural majesty. I mean, she was the unquestioned queen of the universe, but not trying to be, just that's what it was. Yeah. So it was, looking at her was just like overwhelming almost. But at the same time, and everyone who met Ma had this experience and they interpreted it in their own way, this deep soul recognition of utter familiarity. Like there is never, when I looked at her, I was seeing her the first time, I realized there has never been a time I did not know Ma and she did not know me. Of eternity.
Right as you were telling that, I don't know if you heard, this little hummingbird came right behind you and started drinking nectar off the flower, because this whole story is pure nectar right here. Okay.
So Ma invoked all these soul feelings, and then she, excuse me, she took a long time and she looked. There were about 5 of us. She just looked directly into each one of our eyes for a long time. There was no sense of time around Ma. There's no way to tell how long. But as she looked in my eyes, 2 things happened. First of all, she looked right past the body, the mind, the personality, right into the self of the self. I mean, right at my Atma, and which I knew theoretically was there. I was that, but I'd never experienced before. And suddenly, there I am. Oh, I'm a soul. Because she was looking at my soul. With her look, it woke up. I mean, it wasn't enlightenment or anything, but it was just an amazing experience to suddenly realize I am a soul, and I'm being seen. Then the second thing, I realized that no one's ever seen me before. They only see this mask on the far outside, and here I am, way deep in here. I'm being seen for the first time. It's an incredibly satisfying experience. You know, we all want to be loved because we want to be seen. We don't want to be ignored. But to be seen by Ma was to have your immortal soul naked before her. It was an incredibly profound experience. So then I stayed with Ma, and I traveled with her all through 73, 74, all over North India, many places, because she travels so often. And I kept asking her for initiation, for Diksha. I had a private with her first, and I said, I've come to ask you to begin my spiritual life, to give me whatever I need to continue my spiritual life. And she was very kind and loving. In fact, she was very pleased. She once told people, my food is dedicated souls. That's what I eat.
Very well.
Because she literally didn't even eat herself. People fed her a little bit of food, then she turned her face away. She ate dedicated souls. Sometimes she would tell us, she laughed and say, I'm going to consume you, I'm going to eat you. To be eaten by Ma is the greatest and the greatest blessing. So she was very pleased, but then she said, when the time is right. So time went by, we moved, I kept asking her, and she said, when the time is right. And then one time we were back in Vrindavan, and she left a message, come tomorrow to the temple, such and such a time, bring these offerings, we'll have a puja. And so I realized, oh, it's my birthday. I was 19 when I came. It was my 20th birthday, 10th November.
Oh, hold on one second. So I don't know if you mentioned that. So when you met Satchidananda, how old were you?
17.
17, okay.
18 maybe.
So even like you were with him only about a year or so?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
right on.
Yeah, because I kind of had an early start in life. I ran away from home when I was 16 just to get the experience of life.
And what
plunged into it.
What year was that?
Summer of 1970s when I really left home. I came back occasionally, but that was kind of the beginning of my stay in the world. Summer of 1970.
Right on. So you just came in at the tail end of the 60s. You were still slightly young to be fully way out there, like at an older age, I'm guessing, right? I mean, and then you kind of moved into that.
Well, I lived in the French Quarter of New Orleans. I went to a pop festival, hitchhiked across the Deep South, hitchhiked to Colorado and California. You know. So
Right
I kind
on.
of got it out of my system before I had to really start,
Right
before
on.
I had the opportunity of starting a real serious spiritual life through Ma's grace. So, okay, we're back in my initiation. So I was, my 20th birthday, I was so looking forward to having Diksha from Mom. So I got in the morning, you know, with new clothes and shaved my head and all the offerings. And I'm so excited. And Swami Bhaskarnanda Ji, Ma's main Swami, was there. And there was it was in the Vrindavan temple. They set up a little altar behind the Parikrama Marg around the deity. And so it was private. They set up a little altar and some asanas. And he said, just sit here for a few minutes. Ma will be here in 5-10 minutes. Just sit. He said, just sit and meditate. So I sat down and started meditating. And wow, everything just started coming out. Every negativity, every resistance, every passion, it just started coming out. I thought, what is going on? But fortunately, Ma gave me enough discrimination to realize what was going on. I would have just run away. And they say that the disciple who's received Diksha from the Satguru is like, Ramana Maharshi said this, it's like the prey caught in the mouth of the tiger. The ego is gone. It's going to be destroyed. It may take some time, but I mean, it's destined. The ego is gone. The Satguru will not leave the ego. He won't let you go till it's finished. So this is before the initiation. So I literally heard the voice of my ego screaming, get out of here. Run, quick, go back to America, get married, get a job, forget it, the spiritual life thing. You know? Really, I heard a voice saying, get out of here quick, you know. But I knew it was my ego. It was going through the panic of, hey, this guru is going to bring light and it's going to be over. The false ego. So so it went on for about 2.5 hours. Ma kept me waiting about 2.5 hours, and just unbelievable stuff going. Finally, it slowly died down. Slowly died down. I got a little bit over half peace, you know. So slowly, only then Ma walked in the room. So then she gave. We can't tell what happened to Diksha. Ma had a very interesting way of giving Diksha. She didn't give Diksha to the very end of her life. First, her husband Bholanath, who was a great saint, gave it. When he left his body in the 30s, her mother, Swami Mukhi, would take in sannyas. Her name is Mokshada Sundari Devi. But she took sannyas to Swami Muktananda Giri, and she was a saint from birth, and she gave Diksha with Ma there. So people thought like it was Ma working through them. Only from 1970, when Didi Ma, her mother, left her body, did Ma herself begin giving Diksha in a very unusual way. Not too many people. So I was very fortunate to see this. We can't tell how she did it. But so I received the Diksha.
Wait, time out. Well, what does that mean? You can't tell how she did it, or
because she was very specific. Don't tell nothing that happened
Oh,
on the day.
that's what you mean.
Not even the mantra, but I mean, don't tell anything.
Jimmy.
So then I went back to my room after the Diksha, and I was sitting meditating, and I had the experience that my whole being, my whole prana, my whole life force was kind of moving out of me, and Ma was like, I felt Ma just, although I couldn't see her physically, I felt her just right in front of me. It was all just going through Ma and being purified and coming back to me in this beautiful circle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this incredible connection I felt. It was worth getting through that initial purification and test. So I stayed with Ma and had many wonderful experiences. I mean, I had whenever I had a chance, I had a private with Ma. In fact, it was so funny having a private with Ma. At that time, I didn't speak Hindi or Bengali. Ma could speak any language, but she acted like she only spoke Hindi or Bengali. So when I had a private, it'd be just Ma would be there. I'd be in front of her, and maybe one translator. And I always have a whole list of questions about my practice. And you get there and you just look at Ma.
Right.
All questions. You didn't have any questions any longer. That's why I realized you had to. And many people had this experience. You had to write them down, otherwise you just sit and there were no questions. So you just look at Ma and she look at you. But it was really amazing, and she really guided me and started me in the path of Bhakti Yoga and Mantra Yoga. She gave me Nam Diksha. It's a divine name mantra to use. So, you can go on and on for hours about the experiences with Ma, but it was very difficult. She made it difficult because it was so sublime being with Ma that she made it difficult. Otherwise, the whole world would have come. It was not to follow Ma around. First of all, her ashrams, not our ashrams now, but her ashrams at that time and now also, very orthodox. They have extreme prejudice against foreigners. You couldn't be in the same room. You couldn't come to puja. You couldn't eat with them. You were pretty much on your own, and you were treated like, ooh, this foreigner, get out before we're all polluted, type of thing. Not with Ma, of course. In fact, one time she even came out and apologized for the treatment, but she said, many Shud Brahmins come to this body. She usually called herself this body. So these rules have to be in place so they can come near. But she actually apologized to us one time. So we were all over the place. Many times in some places there would be thousands and thousands of throngs of people coming to Ma. In some places, like we were in the little village of Enlightenment near Lucknow one time with Ma. There were just a dozen people. We had great satsang. And as I sat in railways, there was one wonderful, beautiful time where I was sitting in a railway station with Ma, just in the waiting room. I came in, I was traveling with Ma, but her small party got there before me, so I came in, I said, "Where's Ma?" They said, "Oh, she's in the waiting room there." So I came in, she was just sitting in a chair with an attendant on each side, and no one else in the room, just waiting for the train. It was the middle of the night somewhere. So I just sat right in front of her on the floor, and she just looked down at me, and for like an hour and a half, she never took her eyes on me. She just looked at me with so much compassion. And I once in a while, she would ask me a question, and one of the attendants would translate for me and about my practice and things.
So it was just the four of you in that room?
Yeah, yeah.
For like an hour and a half?
Hour and a half, yeah.
That's
she
awesome.
never took her eyes off me.
Mm.
And I started feeling like, as she was watching me, that she was seeing my whole life before, every minute. And I feel it to this day. And so many times when I've been through, as we've all been through hard times, sometimes hard years, I'd always think it'll be all right because Ma saw this.
Mm.
When I sing a bhajan to Mana, I think of her sitting there looking at me with these compassionate eyes. She can look at you in a way you just melt your heart. Oh, my beloved son. So anyway, after all that time traveling with Ma, I went back in the States, and I was living in an ashram for many years. Ma had blessed me. She mostly told foreigners to stay in their own country. She would say, "You were born in that country for a reason. You're more comfortable there. Come and see this body. Come to India occasionally. Stay there in your country." A few people she blessed to stay in India. Swami Vijayananda. A few people she blessed, not many. I asked her if I could stay in India and do sadhana. She was just lit up and gave me this really enthusiastic blessing to stay in India. But then after traveling with her in 73, 74, in those days it was extremely difficult for Americans to get a visa beyond 3 or 6 months. Now you get these 10-year visas. You just put the money down. Excuse me.
Want to take a sip of water, Swamiji?
Yeah. In those days it was hard to get a visa extension, so I would have to, bribe people, go from office to office and get my visa extended. And finally I couldn't get extended anymore, so I went to Ma and I told her, matter of fact, the person translating for me was Brahmacharini Atmananda, who wrote this. Her diaries are published as Death Must Die, beautiful book. And she was an Austrian devotee who came to Ma like in 1942 or something and stayed her whole life with Ma. So Atmananda was translating for me in that last private. And I told him I have to go, and I said, "Do you have any further instructions for me since I'm going back to America?" She just said, "I've given the instructions, do them." Then she stopped and looked at me very intensely. This is the last thing she said to me. She said, "Do japa all the time." Japa is the repetition of the mantra that she gave me. Do japa all the time. So I'm still working on that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But that was her instruction. She really emphasized how beneficial it is to repeat the different mantras, especially the mantra the Guru was given. She said, try to say it all the time, meditate on it all the time. And you're always, with the Guru working inside of you, you always have God with you. So I went back to America, lived in an ashram for many years, 25 years. I won't go into that part. I realized, I'm not getting any younger, and I'm not living in India, which Ma blessed me to do. So I left that ashram, and I was living in a Shivananda ashram in Los Angeles, and working on getting a visa and a passport renewal and all this. And I went to our main Swami Bhaskarananda, who was a wonderful, wonderful saint. He was with Ma for so many years, and he was like Ma's hands and feet. Perfect, realized, wonderful, divine yogi. So humble and so full of love. So I said, Ma told me to stay in India, and I want to go back. Where should I go? I called him on the phone. He said, this is too important to talk about on the phone. You come see me. So he was in Colorado, so I went and spent some wonderful days with him. And he said, I know just the thing. There's a very good ashram that's separate from our particular governing body of Anandamayi Sangha, so they won't give you this orthodoxy problem. It's run by a great saint of Ma, Swami Kedarnath. I'd never heard of him before. And he said he's a dear friend of mine, Swamiji said. And he said they're just starting a school there for the local village children. So you can go, it'd be very good. You help with the school. You can put a good input in and live there. I just tried to be good. So he wrote me. So we were sitting side by side on this couch. He said, "I'll write a letter to Swami Kirtan." So he got a piece of paper and started writing a letter in Hindi, kind of recommending me, introducing me, and saying, "Let him live at your ashram." The minute he started writing that letter, I felt overpoweringly that Ma is suddenly sitting in between us. It was like I was like, wow. So I thought, okay, this must be something important. So he wrote me this letter, and I mailed it to Swami Kedarnath. And after a while, I got a beautiful reply from him saying anything Swami Bhaskaranath Ji asked me to do, I gladly do, because I have such regard for him. But he said, personally, I want to absolutely welcome you at our ashram. You're our family, and I will look after your spiritual life, and you can do save in the ashram. It was a very beautiful, loving letter from we call him Baba, which means father, from Swami Kedarnath. So on a particular date, 9/11/2001, does that sound familiar? I flew out of Los Angeles just hours before the attack on the World Trade Tower. That very day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
I flew out of Los Angeles, going west across the Pacific, and first went to Taiwan. I was staying in Taiwan with in a Buddhist monastery, and some Chinese nuns were showing me around the city. On that day, they were saying they didn't speak English. They kept looking at me and saying, "America tax, America tax." And I would smile and say,
Right, what are you saying?
But they were saying something. What they were wanting to say was attack on America. They were asking if I knew about it. I didn't know what they were saying. So then later that day, I saw signs all trips to U.S. canceled. This strange things. So I was trying to find a newspaper. They're all in Chinese. And so I finally found one and read about the attack on the World Trade Tower. And just obviously, wow.
Good thing you flew west instead of flying east, right?
Yeah, or if it had just been a few hours later, we would have been grounded for weeks. Are you okay?
No, well, it's hot, but I don't worry about me. Yeah.
So I came back to India, and I was so relieved. I hadn't been there for so many years, and I'd spent so much time there before. I felt so natural the minute I landed in India. I never felt really at home in the West. I'd already rejected the culture, as a hippie. We always wanted, we just wanted to start something new. We threw out everything, and then as a yogi, I tried to separate myself and make my own environment. And living in an ashram, we were totally separate from society, so I never felt at home. But in India, I immediately felt at home. I felt it was a lot of samskara, a lot of past life remembrance, that I felt at home with the culture, with the people, and I was very much accepted too. So I did a long yatra, a long pilgrimage all through India. I followed the Ganga from the Calcutta up to its source to Gomukh. I just went all over it. And even after I first got to Omkareshwar, I spent maybe 3 or 4 years just traveling everywhere. I've been all through the length and breadth of the Himalayas, to Gujarat, to Puri, to Kanyakumari at the very tip, South India, North India. I just went to so many holy places. I traveled, met saints, I had many, many adventures, which I've actually written a book about.
What's the title of that book?
Seeking the Saints. But I had one publisher, and then they went bankrupt, so it hasn't been published yet, but I'm going to work on something.
Oh, we must have that book, Swamiji. Yeah. Come on.
Because I met many saints and yogis. But to kind of get back to the sequence of the story, I arrived in Omkareshwar, and I was walking, I had everything I owned on my back, and 2 little bags, everything I owned. And I was walking on the Parikrama Marg, that's the path that goes around the island. It's actually an island in the Narmada River. It's an ancient Shiva shrine. This is where I was sent by Swami Bhaskaranath. It's one of the 12 Jyotirlingams of India. Amazing place, and there's a MAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA there. So I was walking, and I asked somebody, "Where is Anandamayi Ma Ashram?" And I heard a voice behind me, "We're from Anandamayi Ashram." So I turned around, here's this giant, 6'5" Sikh, Punjabi Sikh, wearing all white with a big blue turban, looks like Yogananda, long black hair and beard, striking looking. I thought, wow, who is this guy? Turned out to be, his name was Gurmeet at the time. He later, we both took sannyas together, and he became Swami Guru Sharananda. We were instantly like soul friends, soul brothers. We must have been together for lifetimes, working together. And he became really my deepest and dearest friend. And later we took sannyas together, and Baba told us, you two have a work to do together. So since last few years, you've been traveling together, singing together, making albums together, teaching workshops together. We have a very strong spiritual partnership and work well together, spontaneously. We don't even plan our workshops. We just talk. I start, he talks, we talk.
Why don't you just real quick touch, because you mentioned to me privately, you mean to break? Okay. Tell me about, because you said that sannyas was a little different. It was a little more particular, the particular way you received diksha. So why don't you describe that?
Yeah. Well, first let me just say, so at this point, Guru Meet at that time took me to the ashram, and there was our Baba. There was Sri Swami Kedarnath sitting on this platform by the river, giving satsang. The minute I saw him, I knew he was a saint. He just looks like one of the ancient rishis, and his charisma is so powerful. It's amazing. And I've lived with him now for over 12 years, daily, and I've just observed his life. And I speak now from long experience. My opinion is he's a totally realized, amazing saint of Ma. Ma gave him the final liberation. So I met him. First, he didn't make the connection that I was the one that wrote to him. So I just talked to him some. I told him about my trip, and I said, "Did you get the postcard I sent you telling you I'll be late?" And he said, "Oh, you must be Matri Prasad." See, Ma gave me the name. Okay, and I received Diksha the day after. I asked Ma for a new name, just a name that people call you, so I could start a new life. And she gave me the name Matri Prasad. It means Ma's grace, which I loved. I had that name for years. So I was Brahmachari Matri Prasad. So Baba looked at me and said, "Oh, you're Matri Prasad." And before I could answer, he got up, came over, pulled me up, and gave me a warm embrace and said, "Welcome, welcome, welcome." It was really so moving. So I settled in the ashram. I had the school had just started. Weeks before. So I was able to get in on the input of the original founding of the school and work with Swami Guru Sharan, later Swami Guru Sharan, and the really devoted people who were starting the school. And so it was really from the beginning. Then I started teaching the school. I taught English at first. And Guru Sharan helped me with my Hindi. Later I went to a Hindi school in Missouri for several months and really got a good background. So I got very fluent now. I'm very comfortable with Hindi now. So I was teaching both in Hindi and teaching Hindi to other people. So what was your question?
Hey, but actually, before I get to that, I think actually you should define prasad a little bit differently for those that we're familiar with these terms, so we can intermix them with grace. But prasad, I think, has a much more specific meaning than kripa, which I would say for grace. So talk about what prasad is.
Prasad is something that's offered to the divine, blessed and sanctified, and given back. So it does mean grace in that way. It's prasad because we say prasad like we offer some halwa or some sweet. And it's to a murti or to a saint, and the saint or murti receives it through their eyes and takes the subtle part and then puts their power into that, and so we eat it, and it's good. So people think prasad just means food, but no, prasad just means that grace. That grace comes with that food, but also it means prasad. Many times you have Kali prasad, Mati prasad, Durga prasad. It means blessed by God. It means that
But blessed by God for the benefit of all those that get to partake of the grace. I see it as more like a vehicle for the remnants of grace from that particular Shakti, and that's meant to be consumed by all that would come in contact with it.
Yeah,
that's what it's for, right? It's not to sit on the shelf, right?
You can interpret it that way. But it's usually just Mother's grace. I love that name. I had it for years. And so I took up my life there, and I really devoted myself to a lot of sadhana. My Baba gave me a beautiful room with my own porch overlooking the Narmada. I just lived a very austere life and meditated a lot and did my seva in the school. And years went by. Sometimes I meditated 11 hours a day. And years went by. The school grew, and then we started in 2001. And then in 2007, we basically ran out of money because we didn't take government funds. To this day, we do not. And so we were just running it by donations, and slowly, more students were coming. It was being very successful. It was having an incredible influence on the entire area. It was for these Adivasi children. Adivasi means Aboriginal, very poor tribal children. They were just totally neglected. They were begging. And then these same children, we took them, we cleaned them up, put them in a uniform, and they just started manifesting beautiful inner talents, eagerness to learn, devotion, just incredible kids. They always amaze us.
Beautiful.
So the school was going along very nicely, completely ran out of money. So then we had this meeting, I remember, with Baba and the trustees and Swami Guru Sharan and all of us. And okay, well, maybe before that we'll talk about the sannyas.
I was going to say, how many years were you there? Well, what year did that happen? And tell us about that.
I was given Upanayanam by Swami Bhaskarana. That's the Gayatri Mantra Diksha and the sacred thread. In 2003, Swami Bhaskarana Ji came and said this would be good for me. So he arranged for the Brahmin Pandit to come in. And it's a long ritual. The Brahmin Pandit comes in, you're smeared with all, there's a havan, a fire sacrifice, and you're smeared with all these different elements of India, cow dung and kusha grass, and you have to go down and bathe, come back and do some more rituals, and all these mantras are said. Then you go down, there's a barber down there with a straight edge razor to shave your head and beard with no foam, And then I came back up and Swami Bhaskaraji and Swami Kedarnath gave me my new clothes, and then Baba himself whispered the Gayatri mantra in my ear. So I had it from because first the Pandit gives you, he puts the sacred thread on your shoulder, he walks you around the fire, introduces you to all the deities that are in the four corners he set up, and then he says the mantra to you. That's the original. Usually your father gives it to your son, father to son. But then Baba also, who's a realized saint, whispered in my ear. So that was an incredible blessing to my sadhana. I started doing Gayatri, I still to this day, morning and evening. I did a lot. Sometimes I do 10 miles a day, morning and evening. And it's such a powerful mantra. It just gave such a boost to my sadhana. And still, it's like that. I feel it's like the groundwork of my sadhana, morning and evening, the Gayatri mantra. So then, I just go sequentially. 2000, either 4 or 5, I think 2005. Swami, this man Gurumit, this tall Punjabi Gurumit, that was the name he had originally, is being groomed as Baba's successor. He's a very remarkable, he's a young man, he's in his 30s. He was in his 20s when I met him. Very remarkable, pure character. Since he was a boy, 10 years old, he was kind of raised by Baba. Baba told his father, you have 2 sons, you give me this one. He saw in him this great spiritual potential. So he's been grooming him to be his successor, training him in every yoga and everything, and in seva. He had him start the school. Really remarkable person. So he was going to give Guru Sharan sannyas. So he invited me too. He said, you're still with the sacred thread. If you like, you can take sannyas. So I said, yes, that would be good. Because I've been living as a monk in America too. So the morning came, and it was in August. It was the same day that Ma gave herself self-initiation, Julan Purnima. So
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? What is that called?
Julan Purnima is a full moon day in August where Ma, Anandamayi Ma, had the spontaneous revelation where she had self-initiation. The Guru came out from inside of her, gave her Diksha and was withdrawn back into her. So on this day, he gave us sannyas, but he told us, Baba is actually his sannyas name. People call him Swami Kedarnath, but his actual official name is Swami Atma Swarupananda Saraswati. So he's from the Saraswati lineage of Adishankaracharya sannyasis. But he told us, he said, I'm not going to pass on the Saraswati lineage. I'm going to pass on something I've been longing to pass on before I leave this body. And that is a particular shakti, a particular power that Ma gave me to start a new sampradaya. So he said, this is a very particular, it'll be totally in Ma's lineage and her power, according to her philosophy, her teachings, very separate sampradaya. So he gave us this diksha. He didn't use the fire sacrifice or shave our heads or anything. He just took us on the river, we made some statements, he gave us instructions. I guess I can tell you this, then he also gave me a new mantra. He said the mantra that Ma gave you was the Nam mantra. This is the inner mantra of that. It's the same mantra, but this is the inner, the bij, the seed of that mantra. So he said, now when you're sitting, say this mantra. And then as you're moving around, say the mantra Ma gave you. He said, it's the one thing, but it's like, this is the kind of more powerful thing. And then I remember something, I don't think I should say it. This was very connected with my initiation from Ma too. I remember something that happened then that this is supposed to be. So like, it took, 35 years later, I got the rest of them. Then I feel like I got the fullness of my practice. Gayatri mantra, Ma's mantra, and the inner mantra. That's my practice, and I feel very happy and content with it. So he gave us this diksha, and it was very amazing and very powerful. And he said, you too, Swami Guru Sharan, he named Gurumit Swami Guru Sharan Ananda, which means the bliss of taking refuge in the Guru. Because his whole thing is Guru Bhakti. He has such devotion to Ma and to Baba. We feel Ma and Baba are one. I once told Baba, I have one Guru with 2 names, Ma and Baba. So he has such devotion to his Guru. So he was Guru Sharan Ananda. I just call him Guru Sharan for short, which means refuge in the Guru. So he said, you two have a great seva to do for Ma. And we said, what is it? He said, don't worry, establish yourself, it will come. At that time we had no idea of going to Europe or anything. So this is about 2005, I think I said. 2007 rolled around, we completely ran out of money. We had this meeting with the trustees in Baba, and we realized we have no money to start the school next year. The kids were up to 8th grade, and more enrollments coming from below. And we have to just send them home, back to begging. We cannot go further. So someone said, what can we do? Maybe if we go to the west, someone goes to the west, they can get donations. So then all eyes turned towards me. I was the only Westerner in the ashram for years and years and years. I thought, well, what can I do? I just wanted to just sit on my porch and continue my sadhana, and eventually they'll throw my body in the Narmada, it'd be over. That was my plan. I planned on never leaving India again. when I moved back, I said, I'll never come back to this country again.
So much for our own plans.
Yeah. You can't do that. So I contacted some people I knew in Europe and said, we have to raise funds. Swami Guru Shara and I just naturally sing together, so maybe we can do some concerts or something. So we're not professionals, but we just happen to be musicians and we sing. So they said, yeah, come, we'll arrange something. So then what happened is, so spontaneously this first year, everybody we needed massed into our front door. People just started coming, visitors started coming occasionally. And that, in those days, not as many as now. People started coming. A man came from Germany, and we were talking, very nice man named Jakob. And I said, we're thinking of trying to make a trip to Europe this summer. He said, oh, my friends and I run this big Berlin yoga festival in Berlin, Germany. We'd love to have you come and sing, and we'd blah, 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 come. It was amazing. So all these people came and said, oh, yes, come. So pretty soon the whole tour eventually arranged itself. We didn't know what kind of reception we'd get, but we went. It was Swami Guru Shara's first time to leave India. He had many interesting experiences with that. In fact, the first few days, people were feeding us these wonderful fresh salads, which you never get in India. So we're getting all these green vegetables and salads. I was loving it.
Right, you're like,
and then after a few meals, Swami Guru turned and whispered to me in Hindi. He said, do people here only eat grass? he was appalled that there was no roti and overcooked sabji. And that's so we had many experiences like that. So we had a wonderful reception. People loved our music. We kind of brushed up our act a little bit, so to speak, and made it more professional. And since then, we've sung hundreds and hundreds of concerts and given workshops in countries all over the world. So we've gotten a lot of experience in traveling. So then, from then on, I would still be working the school, doing my sadhana all year. But in the summer, when the school was out, we would tour. We still tour, and we bring back enough money just to keep the school open the next year. So we're either working the school or we're touring to bring money to keep the school active. And I feel that Ma pulled us out of the ashram on this financial basis. One, to keep the school open, but also we feel that was the savor she was going to give us, because we found first people liked our music. Then they said, oh, you're from Anandamayi Ashram. Tell us something about Ma. So many people came. I saw Ma's picture. I had an experience. I saw Ma in a dream. Ma gave me a diksha in a dream. Ma is so active in the West. So we started just talking to people about it, and then people said, please give us a class in yoga. So we got thrown into the roles of being teachers without asking it or wanting it. And we checked with the Baba. He said, our Baba said, you go, you empty yourself totally, and let Ma work. So on our first trip to Europe in 2007, we were going only as musicians, Swami Guru Shara and I. And so we went as musicians and came back as teachers because people were longing. In the West, we see now over the years, there's an incredible spiritual awakening going on in the West. It's unbelievable. And it's all stemming from India, from these great masters of India like Yogananda, Vivekananda, Satchidananda, Yogi Bhajan, these people who came to the West and brought the philosophy and teachings of India. And even Yogananda, he was sent by the masters just for that very thing, to form a synthesis of East and West, so that the West can benefit from the wisdom of India. And we see it is going on now, today. And yoga and Kirtan, and people are turning their faces towards India. And yes, you can say there's a lot of superficiality. People go to yoga for health and all this. But there's also a lot of good stuff going on. There's some very sincere sadhaks in the West. And there's an awakening generally that's just amazing going on. So there was such a longing that people wanted teachings, specifically teachings of Ma. So when we came back from our first trip, we told Baba, we said, we're giving concerts, but then people were asking us for classes, and Baba was very pleased. He said, this is Ma's work, this is your work. He said, I'm sending you for this. He said, Ma is sending you for this. So he said, whenever you go, whenever I send you, empty yourselves totally, and let Ma speak through you and work through you. So we see this wonderful spiritual awakening going on in the West, and it's so wonderful to be a part of it. And really, it's stemming from India, and kind of the two main vehicles are the Yogasana classes and Kirtan. And then from there, people are very much going deeper. Some become Buddhists, but some continue further in yoga. So it's a wonderful thing. Let me get my train of thought here. Okay, let's go back. The first trip in 2007 we went, I really got a beautiful example of how one of the many reasons an aspirant really needs a realized guru in his path, because the ego is so tricky. On our first trip, we had no idea what reception we would get. We weren't professional musicians. I mean, we enjoyed singing and people liked our music, but we had no idea what reception we'd get. So we went, and we got this amazing reception. Even at the Berlin Yoga Fest, we're singing for like 1,000 people. People are going nuts, treating us like rock stars, and screaming and yes, yes. So we were both dealing with it very well, because we're mature people. So we thought, we're dealing with it. But then we were on the road somewhere in Germany in July, and it came the festival of Guru Purnima, which we celebrate very beautifully in our ashram in India. So we wanted to call Baba and at least wish him happy Guru Purnima, So we looked at the time difference, and we realized there was a particular time when he would be giving darshan. So at that time, we were driving on a highway somewhere. We just stopped, found a phone, and called India and talked to Baba and told him our progress so far and what was going on. He spoke to each of us, and there were 3 of us. One boy from our school comes and plays the drum with us, the dholak. So Baba spoke to each of us, and we asked afterwards compared what he told us, and he told us the exact same thing. It was very interesting. I thought I was dealing with this okay, like, big deal, we're doing Saber for the school. But he spoke to me and he said, everything is from Ma. Keep nothing for yourself. He said it again. Keep nothing for yourself. Do Saber for Ma. And when he said it, as he was speaking those words, I saw in my own mind very clearly, because the saint's word will illumine, they give you light, they illumine what's in your mind. I saw in my own mind, I was enjoying this reception. There was a part of me going, this is pretty good, we're getting treated like rock stars. Hey, all those girls are looking at us,
All the 60s, 70s stuff started coming back up.
I didn't really realize it, because it was way back in my mind. I thought I was dealing with it, but it was there. And Baba said said that. I saw it, and I knew he saw it. And it was like he just took a knife and just kind of cauterized it. It's very interesting. And since then, we've had a lot of we've had, we get some kind of a bomb occasionally, but usually we have pretty good reception. And I really feel very much I deal with it better now. Like sometimes you'll be in a big stage and everybody's saying, yeah. And you realize, you step off the stage, suddenly all the attention shifts to the next person on the stage, and you're just a normal guy again. So it's been a good experience. Seeing this name and fame thing doesn't mean anything. It's totally worthless. But
and can I just interject and say your kirtan is absolutely wonderful. Really, your kirtan and the bhav you bring is such a heart-opening, heartfelt, truly traditional piece of India type of bhav. So I'm not one for Western fusion kirtan, and I just love your kirtan. So
well, kirtan is a cultural phenomenon. So it's actually okay to take it out of the setting and put it into Western music. Usually put it in the West is put in either anywhere from classical to rock, with guitars up to rock and roll guitars. But we feel it loses a lot when you take it out of the traditional setting of the raga. The raga is the spiritual melody that comes to. So Swami Guru Sharana and I are very fanatical about, we represent traditional kirtan the way we do, the same way we do it when we're sitting on a cow dung floor in a village in India. We sing the same stuff. And people appreciate that, and I think it is necessary to have that represented in kirtan in the West.
Absolutely.
Because people don't know what real kirtan is, so people do appreciate that. So, where were we?
You're talking about how the name and
kind of the reception, how the Guru's word can really clear that. But it is true. For me, sharing kirtan throughout the world is the greatest joy of my life. To me, it's heaven, especially when I'm singing with Swami Guru Sharana. Because it's kind of, when the three of us sing together, it's coming kind of more than the 3 of us happens, And to me, just sharing kirtan and because kirtan's not a performance, it's a group experience. You're kind of leading it, but when it takes off and people join in, and we're all singing God's name and it grows and we sing and we're dancing and this bhav comes, to me that is life itself. I love that so much, and I hope through my grace I can do it to my dying breath. I'll have singing Shri Krishna Govinda Jai Man, dead. Until the last
Jai Man, beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, so then where are we in this saga? So since then, up to now, 2013, we're supporting the school just with these tours. But now this year, we feel we're getting a little more financial stability from both sides. And we've started having help now. We have a beautiful network of people that we work with around the world who visit us, we visit them. Now many people are coming to our ashram, helping the kids in the school, giving them a whole wider view of life. and cultures, and so many people are working with them. They're just little village children, a very isolated place in middle India.
And obviously anyone is welcome to come.
Yes, people come and teach this class, teach the kids, or they just do a meditation retreat, or just hang out and do seva. It's a wonderful ashram.
And Omkareshwar is an extremely powerful, potent place.
Yeah,
Period.
right
I've been there myself, and I've been to the temple, and it's a Shakti pit and a Shiva pit. You know,
Yeah, very amazing place. So people
very
are welcome to
unusual
come.
place. You know, the island. I don't know if you mentioned the island is actually made in the shape of an Om, right?
Yeah.
When you look at it from above, right?
Yeah.
That's why it got its name, Omkareshwar.
So sometimes I travel 5 months a year, but people ask me, "Oh, doesn't it interrupt your spiritual life?" And actually, I've found it doesn't. If you just go with what is happening and not struggle against what is happening, that's the trick. You know, I can't say, "Oh, I want to be in Omkareshwar. I want to be here." When I'm in Omkareshwar, now I rarely travel in India. Sometimes I'm invited to speak at conferences here and there, but when I get back to India, I try to just sit in Omkareshwar and really get back in my sadhana and my seva. The way we do it is, so I found in my practice the way I keep the stability with all the moving, because when I say moving, I mean when we're in Europe, we are in a different place every night. Sometimes you come to a yoga center, we do a kirtan that night, we sleep on the floor, we get up, we give a half-day workshop, we go to the next place and do the same thing. So for 2.5 months, people say, "Oh, you guys must be having fun." And actually it is. You know, we've seen all these countries of Europe, we've seen amazing things, and beautiful places, and met wonderful people, but it is work. And whether you're sick or well, when you're really sick, you lose your voice, you don't cancel anything, you keep working, you keep singing. So it's a sadhana in itself. The way I found I keep stability is, first of all, we're very clear about our morning practice. No matter where we are, what we're doing, we keep our morning practice. I get up, I meditate, I meditate, I say my mantras, I do asanas, pranayama, as much as I can. Sometimes not as long at Omkareshwar, but I keep that morning practice. And then I just keep the attitude that I'm not away from anywhere. Wherever I am, that's where I am. That's my home. I'm not away from Omkareshwar, away from this. If I'm in Germany, I'm in Germany. If I'm in India, I'm in India. It doesn't matter. I'm just there, in the moment, saying my mantra and doing what I have to do. And just, I'm at home everywhere now. So now I feel no distinction whether I'm, of course, there's a difference between India and the West, but I'm happy at home everywhere. So I'm really not traveling. I'm just like, Ma said the same thing. She said, I'm just moving from one room of my house to the next. So unfortunately, I don't have the consciousness of Ma, but I think it's a good pattern to follow.
Wherever you are, you're doing Ma Seva.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You're with Ma all the time.
Yeah, because Ma is always with us at every moment. We just tend to forget it sometimes, but she doesn't forget it, thank God.
Mm.
So let's see, then where are we? So we're doing the tours. Okay, so here's breaking news from Life of Mangalananda. Because you said maybe we should go into this next stage.
Yeah, why not?
This is the year 2013, and I'm kind of opening a new chapter in my life this very year, which some people may understand, some people may not understand, but I feel very strong about it and very firmly set in. That is that I've been alone since I was 18 years old. I've been a sadhu, I've been living in ashrams, and I've enjoyed it. It's been very strong. It's been an amazing time. From maybe 3-4 years, I've been feeling like there was a change coming on. I needed something else. So you can rationalize this, and you can also condemn these things without understanding it all. But this is not something I've jumped into quickly. I've really carefully considered, viewed my mind, talked to people, talked to our Baba, and I felt like I was starting to feel uneasy, just alone, and living this austere life I've lived my whole life. And in my travels, I met a very wonderful person, a very wonderful woman who's a yogini, practices meditations, a disciple of a guru. And from the first, we were absolute best friends. I mean, just soul friends. And every year, I would see her on the tour, and she visited me in India 2 or 3 times. And we just got closer, but neither of us dreamed we'd ever go closer. Neither of us were free. Obviously, I was a monastic. The situation kind of evolved in this last year, where actually we realized we were really in love. And first I just said, well, all we can do is maybe our next life we can be together if we have another life. But love doesn't work that way. It brings people together. And then over the last 2 years, people have been asking if we could start an ashram in America for Ma, or have some kind of center where people could carry on. Because they said in the West, people get into asanas, when they want to go further in yoga, they become Buddhist because there's nothing else. There's no further. In many cases, there's not a further in-depth way to proceed further within the yogic path, the path of in Hinduism, so they become Buddhists, which is okay. But there's not an ashram for Ma outside of India, except for one which is very insular. So I felt there was a need, and I felt kind of a restlessness deep inside. I didn't do anything about it, but I felt a restlessness. So things worked out recently where I told Baba about the ashram, people wanting to start an ashram, and he said, this is good, it'll be the work of our ashram, just let it continue, let's see how it evolves. So there was more and more interest in two places, in Boston and San Francisco. I decided on San Francisco finally with working some in Boston, but I thought maybe I can combine this. So I talked to Baba. I said, I'd like to spend more time in America this year and see if we can, now that his plans are kind of rolling, I need to be there to help bring this to pass. And I said, I'd like to also make a change in my status. I feel this from inside, and I want your opinion. I will do nothing without your blessing and guidance, but I felt I want to step down from the monastic state, from sannyas, and I want to be with this woman that I very much love and who I think we have a deep spiritual bond. We have an amazing affinity, and I think it would be helpful to me to. I never had a serious relationship. I had, girlfriends before I became a monk. And I've been alone all this time. I think it would be good for me, and I feel very much prompted from inside to do this. And this is not like a passionate fling that I just ran into. I thought, let's do this. This is a very carefully considered consideration. So Baba was incredibly kind. He's from a strict line of sannyasis, and he's so severe, but he has such a wide vision and beautiful, loving heart. And he didn't want me to be a sannyasi. He wants me to realize God. And whatever that takes, whatever destiny unfolds. So I spoke to him about it. He said, I don't see this as a big thing. He said, I see this as a psychological adjustment. He said, we all need to be in the psychological setting we're comfortable in so we can continue our sadhana. He said, if you need this, if you feel you need this, it's possible. He said, continue your sadhana, continue this bhav, I am the Atma, continue my seva, and you can make this adjustment. And I said, will anything be disturbed? He said, nothing. He was very emphatic. He said, nothing will be disturbed. Your power of the Sampradaya will still work through you for your sadhana, for your teaching. You are an official Acharya, that means an appointed teacher of this ashram. I'm appointing you to teach Ma's teachings in the West. He said, this is good. And so I told Gloria I couldn't do this unless she came to India, and we sat with Baba together. So she paid the expense, went through the jet lags, came for just 3 days, just recently. And we sat together in front of Baba, and we received his blessing, his guidance. He gave her a practice, gave us a practice we can do together in our sadhana, because she has a different guru who also loved and respected Ma very much. And so he connected her with Ma. He said, now you're connected with Ma also forever. Because Ma was the universal mother. Most people had different gurus, but they were looked on Ma as like their guide. That was Ma's universality. So now I'm back in America, and after this tour, I'll see, and we're going to slowly open a center in the Bay Area. I'm staying in Santa Rosa, and it's a whole new chapter of my life, and I feel very happy. I'm now called Archarya Mangalananda, or just Mangalananda, not Swami. And I don't feel a big wrench. I feel my sadhana is going on as before, and my life is unfolding beautifully before me by Ma's and Baba's grace. But I'm not alone, and I feel very much helped and strengthened and nurtured by this beautiful relationship, which is great, deep spiritual basis. We meditate together. That's our deep. I find that with this wonderful woman I'm with, that no matter where I am, from the deepest level to the most superficial level, she's there for me. She's there on all levels. I think a person who's spiritual really can't have a deep relationship with someone who doesn't have that spiritual link. Because if you don't share that deepest, most profound part of your life, it's going to be superficial. So,
I think it's beautiful. I think I find, first of all, I personally find you no different at all. Number one,
I got cooler clothes now that I know.
yeah, you have a little more variety to choose from. Number two is that you are extremely courageous to come out and be so open and frank about this. And
that was an important thing. And I even talked to some saints, and I said, I will not live in hypocrisy. I don't want to be the Swami with the girlfriend. I would not subject the woman I love to be the mistress of the secret mistress of the Swami, because she's also extremely ethical, and I will not live in hypocrisy. So I said, we're going to do this openly, clearly, in integrity. Make the decision, make it, I'll announce it, I'm announcing it before the world. See this little thread Gloria and I both wear is a blessing from a wonderful saint I met in Madhya Pradesh just a few months ago, and I told him about my plans of holding me to start an ashram and also to step down, and he was enthusiastic. He said, yes, do it, you'll be right. And the woman is good. He could see everything. He told us so many things without even knowing them.
She'll be the ma of the ashram. Sometimes we need a little more Shakti, you know?
Well, I think life vows are difficult in this. Now another thing is, Baba told me, he said, this is also a trick of Ma, he said, a secret of Ma. He said, when I gave you sannyas diksha, I didn't give you, like I told you, I was passing on a different thing. I didn't shave your head, I didn't do the fire sacrifice. He said, that's more permanent. He said, the sannyas I gave you, you can change your externals. He said, it's fine. You can do it. He was when he gave it, he has, with his full permission, of doing this. And that's a very important point.
It's a very important, because you didn't actually do your funeral rites. You didn't actually burn yourself on the pyre.
Yeah,
so obviously he obviously knew in advance what the deal was.
He said, Ma inspired me to do this because this was your destiny, to do this. So I feel it's very much I don't feel like a fallen yogi or all this stigma you have in India about, you know, the sannyas who ran off with a woman and all this. I feel it's a very logical step, and I'm continuing my life. I'm just not alone. I'm very much with someone who helps me and nurtures me, and we share a beautiful life together, and it's a new chapter in my life.
If I can just add two things I would add is one that, you know, for those that are watching, you know, that there are definitely many great, real, true sannyasis in India, and there are also many people that in public are one thing, and in private they act someone else. And
I've met both.
Yeah, so I'm not condemning any of it. I'm just saying it's very refreshing to, you know, all flavors of, you know, in the ice cream shop exist, all colors of the rainbows exist, and in this time there's room for all of it. And the important thing is not it's not what color robe you wear. It's really more of how much love you bring to this world. And myself, I noticed I'd like to sit in the cremation grounds that no matter what color robe or cloth someone was wearing when they came in, they went with the same vibhuti after it was done. So
and God looks at the heart.
Yeah.
I think for the important thing, the moral of this story, you could say, is let's all do our practice. That's the important thing. We continue in our practice to our last breath. We serve our gurus, we say our mantras, or whatever practice we do it with our full bhav, our full heart. And I feel, and that was one thing too, I had a big monkey go for a long number of years. Oh, we're the great sadhus, these grihastis, and that is total delusion. And one thing, my eyes have been opened by these tours. We met so many wonderful people. We met people who have so-called normal lives, jobs, families, children, all this. They're doing the practice, they're making progress. Sadhana can be done in any environment. Ma always said, I tell no one to run off in the jungle. She said very specifically, wherever you are is wherever you're supposed to be. Your karma is unfolding, teaching that lesson. Stand up, change your perspective. Do your practice. Don't change your external circumstances in that way. You don't have to run off and be renunciate. Change your perspective. So I see more and more that it's not the environment, it's not the clothes. So like I say, I feel it applies to me, and that my life is the same. I'm the same person. I know the same jokes. You know.
You do the same kirtan?
Yeah, I do the same kirtan. I teach the same thing.
And obviously, you know, you'll this is meant for a reason for your life, and not just for your life, for other people's lives, to see that, you know, I mean, it's not, a lot of people don't also know that there are castes of sannyasis that then later get married, and it's a very different type of thing. There isn't one flavor, you know.
And I feel, and several people in India said, you'll be a better teacher because of this. You'll have more experience and be able to relate to people more. Sannyasis, I feel, are kind of over-revered in India. People are like falling down, touching your feet, oh, Swamiji, Guruji, Guruji. And then in the West, they're either feared or misunderstood. Like, why are you wearing a dress? How come you never got married? What's going on? You weird or something? So I feel for working in the West, I'll have greater sympathy in my own heart for people and greater understanding of their problems. And I think people will be more accepting of me as just a normal person who happens to be teaching their Guru's teachings.
I think it's all good, you
We'll
know.
see.
But I think both types are great to have. It's nice to have some experience, and you know, every body will need a different flavor and a different path in, and
Yeah.
you know, and you'll be for who's meant for, and your experiences will help people in the way they need to be helped, and it's
So,
all.
yeah, so take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So people who love me and have been
Uh.
close to me and kind to me are very supportive of me. And I'm sure I'll get a lot of criticism in different places.
Well, I hope maybe not,
Such is
Baba.
life.
Maybe not.
So thank you for
Maybe there'll be none.
talking with me all this time.
But let me ask you a few questions before you
Sure,
give us the
let's
final
do it.
blessing. So, just, you know, I love to ask people the question about, you know, enlightenment, and I'll ask you this about your version, your viewpoint on what is Atma Gyan, what, you know, is there a final enlightenment? What does that word really mean to you?
Well, I've had the wonderful grace in my life to meet many saints, because like, just as Yogananda did when he was a boy, whenever he went somewhere, he tried to meet the saints. In my travels through the world, but especially in India, I've always tried to meet the Mahatmas, the yogis. I've gone out on my way to find the hidden saints. And I've really met some great saints, and I've lived with, I think, one of the greatest saints in India today, our Swami Kirtan, our Baba. So of course, being with Ma, it was remarkable. Just looking at Ma, we found this always. Ma came in the room, when your eyes rested on Ma, it wasn't like well, one way you were drawn in by the attraction of her grace and beauty, but also what happened is you began to wake up. The sight of Ma brought your own inner awareness into incredible contrast. Suddenly you just realized, oh look, I've got parts of my mind back here I didn't know existed, part of my being, depths within me I didn't know, from the sight of Ma. That was her awakening power. It was the true meaning of darshan, blessing just through sight. So I've been with saints, so in a sense I know what holiness tastes like, smells like, in a sense, and I can feel it from a saint. Who can say what the final liberation is? I know I've talked to our Baba extensively about his experiences, when just the feeling of an individual self just is dead, and he's only just identified with consciousness, which has no boundaries. The final state, what everyone says, it cannot be defined, because it's beyond the mind, beyond the senses. It can only be experienced. So what is the question? What is the definition of it?
For you, yeah. Well, how do you define? You know, I've come across. You know, there's some points of view that are talking about that there's like this. You know, people talk about that there's this final step, this final realization, this final this, and some people I think get caught in a trap, especially a lot of the newer Advaitas, let's say, they go through this thing, and then some people point of view, if life is infinite, if the universe is infinite, how can you ever draw a line around infinity?
Well, in one way, all views are right, but an important point here is, like Ma said, the final state is a state where there is no possibility of a question, because there's only one. It's even beyond the experience of an experience. There's only just one unified consciousness. But an important point is, many people today take the so-called direct path, this path of Gyan, knowledge, which is a very good and true path, but they mistake intellectual experiences with the final, with real experiences. If you look at Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he declares emphatically, the only way to really know something is to become one with it through the state of samadhi, and that only happens when the mind is absolutely still. The first definition of yoga, he says, is yogas chitta yogas chitta vritti nirodha. When all the modifications of the mind are completely still, then you rest in your true nature. So I've seen it myself. Some of these teachers, say you are the Atma, you don't have to do any sadhana, you already realized. This is a truth, but it's a relative truth. So when the disciples say, oh yes, I know I'm that, so I'm free. This is not a bad thing to know you're that, but this is a step on the way. It's an intellectual understanding. Intellectual understanding and realizing it through direct, non-mental, souled experience through samadhi is a totally different experience. So so holding that idea, I am the Atma, I am not the body, I'm not the mind, is a sadhana. It's a great thing. But we should not think that we're in the final experience, so our Guru tells us so, until we know that there is no question arising. So I can't define the final experience, because no one can, but I will say, Ma herself said, you never stop your sadhana. You have never arrived. Your sadhana stops by itself when there's no one left to do the sadhana. When the sadhak, has disappeared and merged into the divine. And then if you don't lose your identity, we don't ever go out of existence. Like Krishna says, there's never a time when you or I did not exist, Arjuna. There's never a time we'll cease to exist. But the individuality, the boundaries, our identification as an individual unit disappears, and we know, we experience, we're a part of the one universal consciousness. Until that time, we never stop our sadhana. The divine stops our sadhana when he stops our individual existence. So that's kind of my word. It's just like, don't think you're there. You'll know when you're there. Don't stop till you get there.
Mm. Okay, so we were just discussing final enlightenment here, and what other question I would have asked about that? So what besides Nam Japa that you said, what are your favorite practices that you find most effective?
Well, like I say, I was raised with mantra, so to speak. So I really am a firm believer in the power of mantras, and Ma spoke about that a lot. But any practice will take you. See, Ma said a very important thing. She said if a person takes any practice they feel comfortable with, it can be anything, from just simple prayers to some kind of complex yogic sadhana. If we feel comfortable with it, she said, take that, regularly practice it, and if anything else is needed, it will come to you on its own. If you need a guru, they'll come and ring your front doorbell. This is like a principle of the universe. If you're practicing what you have, you'll get more. If you're not practicing, you won't get anything. So it kind of takes away all our excuses. Oh, I can't meditate, I don't have a guru, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Ma said, take something you feel comfortable with, that is a complement of your nature, that comes out from inside of you. Work with it. In the end, it's not the practice that gets you to God. In fact, all saints say, sadhana does not produce realization. They are not connected. Realization comes from grace, the grace of God, the grace of the Guru. All sadhana does, and the thing is, sadhana is absolutely necessary. Sadhana prepares us to receive that grace, opens us up to receive that grace, it matures us, it makes us capable of accepting that grace and working with it for illumination. But ultimately, the practice doesn't matter. It's something that should be a part of our own nature, that we feel it, we love and feel comfortable with, and we feel we can do it for life. And some are kind of more effective than others, but even that doesn't matter. It's how you do it. I know a wonderful saint named Swami Ramananda in India. He passed away recently, but he was a wonderful, everyone looked on him as a Jiva Mukta. And someone once asked him, what's the best way to realize God? He said, it's through your bhav. Bhav is your soul feeling that to do something with. It's not the practice, it's the bhav. He said, through your bhav, you rip apart the universe and see the truth. So really, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So it's what effort we put in. And yoga is a very, very precise science. The amount you put into it is the amount you're going to get out of it. Ultimately, one saint I met said it so beautifully. He said, your own self-effort would take you to a certain level, and then you'll see beyond you just an infinite ocean of light and consciousness. And he smiled and he said, it's by invitation only. So you have to be invited into that. But we have to prepare ourselves for that invitation. So for me, I love mantra. For me, like the way we survive on these tours is we'll be exhausted. We'll come to a concert that night. God, can I even do this? We'll sing the concert totally renewed for the next day because the power of the mantras keeps us going. So the mantras have such a shakti. You're literally holding God within you when you speak any mantra. So I love that. But every sadhana is effective. And Ma had, she said, by any path that anyone approaches the divine, this little child heartily welcomes them. So Ma's at the end of every path. So every path is good. Again, it's just up to the person's individual predilections, what their samskara is, what they feel is best for them. But take some practice and do it.
So in one sense, even if your teacher isn't fully cooked, or even if you were going to a teacher that, maybe wasn't that cooked at all, in a sense, if the disciple is really earnest, it's really the disciple's shraddha that's really the important part of that whole equation.
That's a great truth. Ma said, if a child is given a seed, whether by a madman or he picks it out of a garbage can, if they plant it in the ground and water it, it will grow. So it's good to have a realized guru. That's always
Absolutely.
nice.
Absolutely.
But it is true. We can take something from anything. You take it from a book. If we put it into practice and make it alive, we aliving it by giving our prana and our life force to it, it will bear fruit. God's waiting for us to respond.
And
The
whatever
universe is here to evolve us to our full capacity. That's what the purpose of creation. So when we consciously start living spiritual life, we fall into step with the plan of the universe, and everything unfolds before us.
And I think, like you said, whatever else we need will just come to us automatically.
It really will. And I've seen it in my own life and in many other people's lives too.
Yeah.
If you just take it and work with what you have.
Okay, now why don't you just take a few minutes and just tell us about the school and the project from wherever we
Yeah,
stuff for that.
if you look at our ashram website, which is shrianandamaima.org, that's S-R-I, Anandamayi Ma, 1A.org, Anandamayi, M-A-Y-I, shrianandamaima.org. You can see some things on the ashram website. The wonderful organization that was started by devotees here in California, just out of the goodness of their heart to help us, is called Children of Ma, childrenofma.org. The whole thing is Children of Ma Anandamayi, and they are taking donations worldwide through credit card and PayPal and doing totally selfless work just to help the school. Wonderful people. They're the ones who arranged this concert recently in Sannyas for me. So childrenofma.org, Shri Shri Anandamayi Ma.org, no, shrianandamaima.org. For a list of my music, you can go to TuneCore, look up Swami Mangalananda.
And CDs are available for purchase?
Mainly through my tours. I have a new website, Mangalananda.org. It's for me. I'm going to be teaching Hindi to help support myself, and for my Kirtan and Hindi teaching.
Are you teaching it online, or are you going to be teach it in person, or you don't know
in person,
yet?
I was thinking, I haven't even started yet. I've just got the website up. When I get back in the Bay Area, that'll be one of my means of support to keep myself alive. I was thinking just having classes in different places, but it could even be through Skype. Who knows? So I'll see how that unfolds. But I'm a very experienced Hindi teacher.
And obviously, I'm going to put all those links not only on the video as a title, but I'll be putting them in the description, so people will have that easily available to them, where they can go and seek out more of what you're doing and read more about the school and how they might want to support it in various ways if they feel moved by it. Some people have sponsored some children so that they are set up to give monthly or quarterly, and there's many different ways that people can contribute to this project. And the money goes so far in India now, especially with the fact that a lot of times it's like 60 rupees to the dollar now. You don't know how much your dollars are helping these beautiful children at the school, and it's an honor for anyone that does donate to receive that punyam for having the intelligence to give that way. Giving is a good thing, man.
Absolutely.
And giving for kids is an extra good thing, I think.
Thank you, sir. You're doing a wonderful work.
Oh.
Any of us, all of us who are in the spiritual path, we are contributing to this wonderful awakening that's going on. Just if we're meditating, if we're doing asanas, and if we're teaching people yoga, if we're doing, like you're doing this work, you're interviewing people about spiritual things and spiritual thoughts. Every little bit helps. Everything helps increase that light, and because we are not separate, we are all interconnected. If one person becomes more awake, the entire human race becomes more awake. So we're all in it together.
Whatever we can do to share. This is actually the first interview I've conducted in the States and not in India, and I want to do more whenever I get a chance. It's all good stuff. And Swami, why don't you? I want to come for a personal blessing, but why don't you give a personal blessing to anyone that's watching this, that they receive your Ashirvad.
Ma is always giving blessing like a fountain, like a waterfall. She said, God's grace is descending on us at all times, but just like under a waterfall, if we have a vessel that's upside down, the water just hits on the top, inside is dry. She said, do sadhana to turn your vessel right side up, and the grace is there. You receive it. So let's just turn our vessels right side up, and Ma's grace is always there.
And please,
Jai Ma.
Swamiji, please give me from the Shivaya. Please give me your own personal blessing.
My, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. You bless me too. That's
It's so. I have to tell you, it is so rare to meet someone that's lived for so long in this way that's so humble. Still, it's always a beautiful thing. It comes in every flavor, and I love every flavor.
Well, humility is just saying the truth, that you're not separate from anybody. So how can you be proud if you're just one?
Jai Ma, see?
Consciousness.
When you have Ma as your guru, you cannot go wrong. Jai Ma, Jai Ma. Perfect.